Hi guys, welcome back to my class. I'm your Korean teacher, Emma from seemile. What did you learn at last time? We learned how kindly suggest or request something in Korean. As previously mentioned, today we are going to figure out how to state do's and don'ts in a socially acceptable way. After this class, you'll also be able to distinguish if the actions spoken about by the speaker are considered necessary or merely optional. But before moving on, let's first preview the vocabulary we are going to cover during today's class. Repeat after me out loud as a memory aid. 파란불, 횡단보도, 건너다, 줄, 서다, 담배, 피우다, 공원, 소리, 쓰레기통, 버리다, 할머니, 자리, 양보하다, 주의, 떠들다, 세우다, 찍다, 빨간불, 골목길, 경적, 울리다, 국립박물관, 입장권, 어린이, 버스비. Okay, now let's get started. So today's class will be handled a bit differently than usual. It will cover pages from 259 to 262 of the book, but I won't be handling the pages in the same order as the book, but rather I'll separate the example sentences in two parts, one about the do's and the other about the don'ts, in order to help you understand and remember them more easily. First, let's start with the do's. Now, I'm going to play a video. As you watch it, please try to figure out which endings are used to describe the do's.
파란불일 때 횡단보도를 건너세요.
지하철을 탈 때는 줄을 서세요.
쓰레기는 쓰레기통에 버려야 돼요.
지하철에서는 할머니에게 자리를 양보해야 돼요.
횡단보도를 건너기 전에 주위를 살펴야 해요.
도서관에서는 떠들지 말아야 해요.
이곳에는 차를 세워도 돼요. 여기에서는 사진을 찍어도 돼요.
파란불일 때 횡단보도를 건너세요. 파란불일 때, when there's a green light, 횡단보도를 건너다, to walk across a crosswalk. Here you see the ending 세요 is used. Well, you've already practiced this ending before in lesson 24 and learned that a sentence ending with 으세요 often follows one that utilizes 으려면 because 으세요 is the respectful form of the request. So let's take a look at this in more detail. This 으세요 is the combination of 으시, an ending indicating respect, and 아요어요, an ending usually used to make present tense declarative sentences, but can also be used to turn them into imperatives. 으시어요 can be shortened to 으셔요 or 으세요, but generally 으세요 is used more, so that's what we'll practice with here. So as you may have already figured out, this 으시다, as in 으세요, is used when using an imperative form to tell somebody to do something in a relatively respectful manner. Then what if you want to avoid sounding like you're ordering somebody to do something, but instead just convey information about what the subject should do? You also learned an expression before in lesson 24, 아야 해요, 어야 해요. It is like saying should, need to, must in English. So in a nutshell, while the use of 으세요 as in 파란불일 때 횡단보도를 건너세요 makes the sentence an imperative, the use of 아야 해요 as in 파란불일 때 횡단보도를 건너야 해요 merely conveys information about what the listener or the subject should do. This 아야 해요 can be used interchangeably with 아야 돼요 without making a significant difference in meaning, especially in spoken language or in an informal setting. So you also can say 파란불일 때 횡단보도를 건너야 돼요. So 으세요, 어야 해요, 어야 돼요 all are used to explain what must be done, but what if something is optional, not required? Just change 야 from 어야 돼요 into 도. 어도 돼요. It's like saying you can, you're allowed to. So if you say 파란불일 때 횡단보도를 건너도 돼요, then it means people are allowed to cross the crosswalk when the light is green. FYI, in English, when we say green light, it means that a car can continue through the intersection or that a person can cross the street, right? But interestingly, in Korean, we use a different color light to mean the same thing, 파란불, which literally means blue light, but it has the same significance as the green light in English. Another FYI, green in Korean is 초록색. So even when you say 초록불 to refer to the green light, Korean people would understand what you mean. Alright, keeping that in mind, please pause the video and try to say these sentences out loud in Korean by yourself first, and then check the answer. 지하철을 탈 때는 줄을 서세요. 쓰레기는 쓰레기통에 버려야 돼요. 쓰레기는 쓰레기통에 버려야 해요. 지하철에서는 할머니에게 자리를 양보해야 돼요. 지하철에서는 할머니에게 자리를 양보해야 해요. 횡단보도를 건너기 전에 주위를 살펴야 해요. 횡단보도를 건너기 전에 주위를 살펴야 돼요. 도서관에서는 떠들지 말아야 해요. 이곳에는 차를 세워도 돼요. 여기에서는 사진을 찍어도 돼요. 비행기를 타면 비행기가 이륙하기 전에 핸드폰을 꺼야 돼요. 비행기를 타면 비행기가 이륙하기 전에 핸드폰을 꺼야 해요. 자전거를 탈 때는 안전모를 써야 해요. 자전거를 탈 때는 안전모를 써야 돼요. 이 공원에는 강아지가 들어가도 돼요. You did a great job. Then, as a review, please repeat after me out loud. 파란불일 때 횡단보도를 건너세요. 지하철을 탈 때는 줄을 서세요. 쓰레기는 쓰레기통에 버려야 돼요. 지하철에서는 할머니에게 자리를 양보해야 돼요. 횡단보도를 건너기 전에 주위를 살펴야 해요. 도서관에서는 떠들지 말아야 해요. 이곳에는 차를 세워도 돼요. 여기에서는 사진을 찍어도 돼요. 비행기를 타면 비행기가 이륙하기 전에 핸드폰을 꺼야 돼요. 자전거를 탈 때는 안전모를 써야 해요. 이 공원에는 강아지가 들어가도 돼요. Then, now let's move to don'ts part. During the previous class, you learned that adding 지 말아요 to a verb stem is one way to prevent somebody from doing something. But you also learned that this option is not an appropriate choice when the listener is not a close peer or someone younger than you. Then which expression would help you avoid sounding rude? Let's first watch the following video.
버스 안에서 담배를 피우지 마세요.
공원에서 큰 소리로 떠들지 마세요.
빨간불일 때는 횡단보도를 건너면 안 돼요.
골목길에서 경적을 울리면 안 돼요.
국립박물관은 입장권을 사지 않아도 돼요.
어린이는 버스비를 내지 않아도 돼요.
버스 안에서 담배를 피우지 마세요. What is the speaker telling the listener not to do? That's right, not to smoke on the bus. And they are to indicate that what ending is used. 지 마세요. Well, actually, this ending made up of expressions you've already learned, which is 지 말아요, don't do something, and 시, an ending indicating respect. 마시어요 can be shortened to 마셔요 or 마세요, but generally 마세요 is more frequently used, so that's what we are going to use when practicing this sentence. 버스 안에서 담배를 피우지 마세요. Don't smoke on the bus. So, as not to give the impression that you are ordering somebody around, you may choose to simply convey information about something that someone should not do, and to do that, you can use the expression 으면 안 돼요, as in 버스 안에서 담배를 피우면 안 돼요. You should not smoke on the bus. What if refraining from doing something is not necessarily a requirement, but an option? For example, you don't need to pay to enter a national park. 국립공원에 가기 위해 입장권을 사지 않아도 돼요. So basically, we are adding 지 않다 in front of 아도 되다, and it literally means you're allowed not to do something, but in English, it's like saying you don't have to do something. Okay, once again, please pause the video and try making application of what you've learned. Try to say these sentences out loud in Korean by yourself first, and then check the answer. 공원에서 큰 소리로 떠들지 마세요. 도서관에서는 떠들면 안 돼요. 빨간불일 때는 횡단보도를 건너면 안 돼요. 골목길에서 경적을 울리면 안 돼요. 국립박물관은 입장권을 사지 않아도 돼요. 어린이는 버스비를 내지 않아도 돼요. Good job! As a review, repeat after me out loud. 버스 안에서 담배를 피우지 마세요. 공원에서 큰 소리로 떠들지 마세요. 도서관에서는 떠들면 안 돼요. 빨간불일 때는 횡단보도를 건너면 안 돼요. 골목길에서 경적을 울리면 안 돼요. 국립박물관은 입장권을 사지 않아도 돼요. 어린이는 버스비를 내지 않아도 돼요. Now, here's the summary for today's lesson. 으세요. Do something. 지 마세요. Don't do something. 어야 돼요. 어야 해요. The subject should do something. 어도 돼요. The subject can or is allowed to do something. 으면 안 돼요. The subject should not do something. 으지 않아도 돼요. The subject doesn't have to do something. It's okay for the subject not to do something. Keeping that in mind, let's turn to page 265 and solve the questions there. Number 1. Choose the right picture. 공원에서 큰 소리로 떠들지 마세요. 지 마세요. Don't do something. Don't do what? 공원에서 큰 소리로 떠들다. Speak loudly in the park. In picture number 3, Kai is in the park. He appears to be yelling, and you also can see the symbol indicating prohibition, so this would be the answer. Next, 골목길에서 경적을 울리면 안 돼요. 으면 안 돼요. The listener should not do what? 골목길에서 at an alley, 경적을 울리다, honk a horn. So picture number 3 would best describe the sentence. Now question number 2. Complete the sentence, choose from the list. Number 1. 도서관에서는 떠들지. Is it okay to speak loudly in the library? No, it's a place where we should be quiet, and that's why loud speech prohibited in most libraries. And the word 말다 should be used, so out of the available options on the list, 으세요, 아야 해요 can be used with 말다. The real deletion occurs, so it becomes 마세요 or 말아야 해요. 도서관에서 떠들지 마세요. 도서관에서 떠들지 말아야 해요. Number 2. 빨간불일 때는 횡단보도를. Is it okay to cross the crosswalk when there's a red light? Of course not. So 지 마세요 or 으면 안 돼요 should be attached to 건너다. 빨간불일 때는 횡단보도를 건너지 마세요. 빨간불일 때는 횡단보도를 건너면 안 돼요. Number 3. 어린이는 버스비를. What if you wanted to say that kids don't have to pay bus fare? Yes, 지 않아도 돼요 would be appropriate to use. 어린이는 버스비를 내지 않아도 돼요. Number 4. 여기에서는 사진을. If you want to highly recommend that the listener take a photo here, then you might say 여기에서는 사진을 찍어야 해요 or 여기에서는 사진을 찍어야 돼요. If you're trying to explain that it's okay to take photos here, then you might say 여기에서는 사진을 찍어도 돼요. If it's not permitted to take photos here, 여기에서는 사진을 찍으면 안 돼요. If you're trying to tell the listener that he or she doesn't have to take a photo here, then 여기에서는 사진을 찍지 않아도 돼요. Number 5. 쓰레기는 쓰레기통에. What does 쓰레기 have to do with 쓰레기통? Of course, the 쓰레기통 is the place where the 쓰레기 should be thrown. So the answer should be 쓰레기는 쓰레기통에 버리세요. 쓰레기는 쓰레기통에 버려야 돼요. 쓰레기는 쓰레기통에 버려야 해요. Number 6. 버스 안에서 담배를. In Korea, you're not allowed to smoke on the bus. So let's say 버스 안에서 담배를 피우면 안 돼요. If it's okay to smoke on the bus in your area, then you may also say 버스 안에서 담배를 피워도 돼요. Number 7. 지하철을 탈 때는 줄을. If you're trying to say that the listener should wait in line to catch the subway, then you could say 지하철을 탈 때는 줄을 서야 해요. Or 지하철을 탈 때는 줄을 서야 돼요. Lastly, number 8. 국립박물관은 입장권을. If your intent is to say that you don't have to pay when visiting the National Museum, then you can say 국립박물관은 입장권을 사지 않아도 돼요. Well done, guys! Now, let's talk about the do's and don'ts of language learning. Let me tell you my thoughts on that subject first. 외국어를 공부할 때 실수를 많이 해도 돼요. 그 언어로 완벽하게 말하지 않아도 돼요. 실수가 두려워서 조금만 말하면 안 돼요. 그 언어로 가능한 많이 말해야 해요. What do you think? What kinds of do's and don'ts are there when learning a new language? You've studied Korean for a while now, so I'm sure you've come across some helpful study tips and also some obstacles that may have presented a challenge. Please share your story or opinions regarding that. Feel free to use a dictionary when needed and use the expressions we learned today as many times as possible. Of course, you can leave your stories below in the comment section if you want somebody to proofread it. Excellent! Today, we learned how to express what should and shouldn't be done, as well as how to clarify whether or not doing something is an option or considered a must. During our next class, you're going to encounter some conjunctions like if, so, in addition, etc. Things connect one sentence to the preceding one, modifying it. These types of words give the listener a helpful glimpse of what's going to be mentioned next in the conversation, which could be very helpful, right? So let's practice doing that in our next class. See you there. Bye!